we have Whisker TV, and I think that would be very good, to have women come together and help other women. Now, Whisker TV today is coming to you live from Shell Hall, Muson Center, in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Kayode Okikilu, and I'm delighted to be moderating. Thank you. I'm delighted to be moderating this year's flagship panel discussion over the next 60 minutes. And this is where the rubber hits the road. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll be immersing ourselves into the vast experience, vast wisdom of 4 phenomenal women who have distinguished themselves so much so that they have risen to the top in spite of several challenges, and they're now playing big. Their stories will inspire you. Their stories will motivate you. And their stories will prove to you that not only can women play big, but they can do exceptionally well when they're on the big stage. Amen. All right, so let's meet our panelists this morning without taking much of your time. Our first panelist is the MD and CEO of Lotus Bank, Nigeria's 3rd non-interest bank. She has over 30 years of banking experience from areas of core banking, including international and domestic operations, payments, general management, business development, risk management, human resources, and strategy. She started her career in 1988 at National Oil and Chemicals Marketing Company PLC, now Conoil Nigeria PLC, and she moved to Guarantee Trust Bank PLC in 1990 as a pioneer head of human resources. She was part of the GT Bank team that implemented its core banking application amongst other critical assignments executed for the bank. Well, she left with accolades in 2015 as a general manager, and she continued to consult for banks and other sectors through her consulting outfit until 2018, when she was appointed as the MD designate for Lotus Bank. At that point, the bank was in formation. Now, she holds a BSc from the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, and an MSc from the University of Lagos, graduating as the best student in her class. She holds Islamic finance certifications from Ethica Institute of Islamic Practice, the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance, and the Islamic Research and Training Institute. She has also attended various executive management courses at the Cranfield School of Management UK, Lagos Business School, Institute of Management Development Switzerland, and INSEAD France. Ladies and gentlemen, Whiskers, please welcome Kafilat Araye, the MD and CEO of Lotus Bank, as she steps on stage this morning. Just let's keep clapping so she gets here. Thank you. Thank you very much. These CVs are quite intimidating, but I'll do my best. Our next panelist is the co-founder and the CEO of Iwosan Investments Limited. By the way, Iwosan is a Yoruba term that means cure or heal. Now, Iwosan is a health investments holding company dedicated to investing in healthcare infrastructure. Thank you. So Iwosan essentially is a health investments holding company dedicated to investing in healthcare infrastructure across Nigeria. She was also co-founder, in fact, founder and CEO of Health Markets Africa, which is a healthcare advisory and investment company. She was director at Investment Fund for Health Africa, that's IFHA, a pioneer private equity fund focused on healthcare in Africa. I can honestly go on and on about her antecedents, but I tell you one thing, she is a juggernaut. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me, Fola Laoye, co-founder and CEO, Iwosan Investments Limited. Just to add, she was nominated as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum in 2011 And in 2013, she was awarded the Harvard Business School Africa Business Club Leadership Excellence Award. Thank you. Well, our third panelist is the first female and first Nigerian to become the managing director for Maersk in Nigeria. Now, for almost 20 years, she has garnered solid experience with the Maersk Group, where she has held various positions in West Africa, the United Kingdom, and Denmark for various business units. Since June 2020, she has been responsible for the business planning and execution of Maersk in Nigeria through effective optimization of the company's product portfolio, creating value for customers, and strengthening partnership with stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Lara Lano. She's a managing director for Maersk Nigeria Limited. Thank you. And our fourth panelist. She's the president and the group CEO of Transnational Corporation of Nigeria, that's Transcorp PLC. But before her appointment, she served as the MD and CEO of Transcorp Hotels PLC, where she was responsible for driving positive transformation both in Transcorp Hilton Abuja and Transcorp Hotels Calabar. She has over 2 decades of corporate experience in organizational development, human capital management, banking, change management, hospitality, and energy. She was a chief operating officer at the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Now, a lot of people will know her for that, before joining the Transcorp Group. She also worked as a director of resources at Hares Holdings Limited, which is a family-owned investment company chaired by Tony Elumelu, CON. This morning, I'd like you to warmly welcome, with a round of applause, Owen Omogiafo, who is the president and group CEO of Transnational Corporation of Nigeria PLC, Transcorp. Okay, please kindly sit there. Forgive me. Thank you. Let's just put hands together as I join them. All right, so let's get into the meat of the matter. I'm quite delighted to be sitting in the same room with amazing women. Looking through your CVs can be quite intimidating, but I promise to do my best this morning. And for the purpose of this conversation, we'll stick to first name basis. I hope that's okay with you. Okay, I see Lara vehemently saying that's fine. And I'd like to begin with Lara, incidentally. I understand that Owen has to leave. You have an appointment, so we'll come to you in a moment. But I'd like to just take this as we move on. So, Lara, you are the first female, in fact, first Nigerian MD of Maersk Nigeria. So essentially, you shattered 2 glass ceilings, as it were, as first female and first Nigerian MD of Maersk Nigeria. And I'd like you to share your story, if you can, briefly. How did you break first the glass ceiling as a first woman, and then the record as the first Nigerian MD of Maersk Nigeria?
Okay, thanks a lot, Kadi. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for having me, Whisker. I would start by saying that being in a male-dominant industry has a way of being positively challenging. The higher up you go, the leadership cadre, it also has a way of being lonely, especially if your network is not as strong as it should be at that point in your career. In many ways, we've seen many industries that have strong institutionalized male ways of doing things. And I've seen across my career that it has that kind of environment has the tendency of making women feel incompetent or incapable. One of the things I've done across my career is to cultivate and to fortify my confidence. I tell my colleagues, charge your confidence on a daily basis the same way you charge your phone. And if you remember the words of William Hazlitt, he said, as your confidence, so is your capacity. I chose very early on in my career that my gender would not be a disadvantage, but I would rather use it as my superpower, and I've done that. The second thing I would say that I've done is to define and to align my communication. I found out that there's nothing that is so simple that cannot be misunderstood. You know, Hubert Humphrey said that the right to have a voice is not automatically accompanied by the right to be taken seriously. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be taken seriously. And you know, women and also men in the room, one of the things I would say is that you are always communicating whether you know it or not. So please be intentional about what you're communicating. And when I say communicating, I'm not talking about emails or verbal communications. I'm talking about the full package. It's about the fluency of your thought. I think Owen and I were talking in the morning where we said that when women talk, please make sure you are speaking from a place of what you understand and not necessarily what is trending. So I had to learn to be consistent across the various channels of my communication. The quality of outputs that I chose to sign my name to had to be what it is that I had told myself I wanted it to be. And I realized that the more consistent I became in aligning all the various channels of my communication, it added a kind of velocity to my career development. You never stop communicating. You never stop improving that alignment. So I'm still working in that regard. The third thing that I would say is I had to learn very fast as much as I could. I am a very voracious reader. I read across various areas of interest. I'm that reader that would tell a colleague, meet me in a bookshop. We'll sit there, we'll look at books, we'll buy for each other, and we have a book club. But the various channels in which I learned also is what I would also say inspired me. You know, I found people that I respected and I followed their life story, either through podcasts, through articles, through books. But I also found people that I did not want to be like. And I brought them close enough to me for me to be able to know what I didn't want to be like. And I found my way of appreciating them. So if you have ever received a thank you card from me, it's not necessarily because you're a particularly nice person. It could also be because you taught me what not to be like. And that also helped me know how to navigate the various kinds of people that we had across your journey. I would also talk about the mentoring and the sponsorship, but I'm sure, Kayode, at some point you probably would ask us deeper questions on that. I would say very quickly that mentoring for me was not an automatic one of success. You know, for it to be successful, I had to commit to it. The mentor had to commit to it. And the mentors that I found, I realized that not every successful person is interested in developing people.
Right.
So you have to find people who have a disposition to actually developing people. On the part of the mentors, I found out that the ones that had impacted my career were the ones who were willing to invest that time to be vulnerable, you know, to reflect on their own experiences and to share. In fact, I had weight of some things that I had to offer a non-disclosure agreement just because of the weight of what I was hearing. But on my own part as well, I also had to be vulnerable. I had to be willing to ask for help because it's not something you do the higher up that you go. I had to be willing to change paths, to change perspectives.
Right.
So I would say, and let me be fair, the mentors that have impacted me have been both gender. I had to find men who were willing to be my allies, men who were willing to advocate for me, men who had the courage to actually, you know, proclaim the good work that I was doing in our organization.
Well, Lara, let me ask you to keep your gunpowder dry. We're almost getting into that, but let me switch to Owen, because you're the first president, CEO of Transcorp. Sorry, I didn't get that. Oh, okay. Oh, go on. All right, thank you. So you're the first female president and CEO of Transcorp, and I'm sure you can relate with some of the things she says. You rapidly moved through the UBA group. Here's Holdings as well. So how did your glass breaking process go? How did you achieve that for you?
So good morning, everyone. Is this working?
Oh, yes, please go on.
I was smiling as Lara spoke. I'm like, okay, we've got very similar stories. But I've kind of like always been an early starter. I literally started school at the age of 2. I wasn't even potty trained yet when I started school. I still had my pacifier in my mouth. And I was born the youngest, only daughter to big boys. So from get-go, I've had to compete with guys to be out there. But I had a champion, and I still have that champion. He's very dear to my heart, my dear father. who just turned 75.
That's good.
And he always made me feel, you're special. You're special. Literally, in my family, when you have a boy, hi, okay, congratulations. You have a girl, and they are bringing out the whole tambourine. I don't know why, but that's just what happens. So I had that growth path where coming up, I was never made to feel different. I don't know if that makes sense. I was never made to feel different. Rather, I was made to feel special. You're unique. There's something wonderful about you. And even as I was growing and people would try to shut me down, my dad is going to say, no, 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 leave her, leave her, leave her. She has something to say. So I do recognize that I have that foundation, and I really want to emphasize it because we are grooming the next generation of leaders. Today, I'm a mom to a son and 2 daughters. I'm being intentional about how our son is being brought up so he can also play his part. He's play his part in creating an enabling environment for his sisters and other women. He already knows about how the women body go. There's nothing like, oh, I'm talking to Precious, so you go away. You're going to stay there and understand. So in future, because of course he's going to be a future leader, hallelujah, somebody.
Yeah.
In future, he can understand. But now bringing it into the workplace, what's the journey been? I've been pretty fortunate to work in organizations that I've had strong women. I've had strong women. I've also had responsible and aware men. Why have I chosen these words? The reality is that if someone feels easily threatened, they would want to squash you. They don't want to see you grow. But if someone understands that this person is an ally, we're working towards the same goal, this person brings something to the table. I said to folks, look, I was born female. Right, is an ascribed identity at birth. I know the world is moving to another direction now, but that's a conversation for another day. I was born female. I was born May 28, 1980. I've always been the youngest in the room. There's not much I can do about that. I'm not going to add to my age. I'm not going to lie about who I am. I'm not going to lie that I was born and brought up in Benin City, that I'm a small town girl. But what I'm going to do is work on those values that I have, the strengths that those unique traits bring to me. And what are those traits? As a native girl, born and bred, we're respectful. We are very conscious, disciplined. One of the things you hear Owen says, I say, oh, I'm a little late. I'm like, wow, there's no spectrum of being a little late. If you miss your flight by 5 minutes and you miss your flight by 1 hour, does it matter? At the end of the day, you missed your flight. So taking those traits into it is understanding. I've always known that when I walk into a room, more often than not, I'm the youngest. Everyone's going to say, what's she doing here? That's always been my story. So I've made sure that when I engage with you, you will be the one explaining why I'm here. I don't have to start arguing. I don't have to start justifying. And that's been my story from the various organizations I have worked in. I always speak to, I know she's going to roll her eyes again at me, Mrs. Adeshola. I remember about 15, 16 years ago when she came to speak to us when we were at Accenture, and she talked to International Women's Day, March 8th. She spoke to us about how she was going, and I looked at her and said, she can do it. I'm there. I can get there. And I started following her story, following other people's story to see how are women triumphing. She worked in banking. You people know what that is. Being a woman, I have some phenomenal, all organizations are great, but I have to really appreciate the women that have risen through banking. I worked in the banking sector. It's not easy. It's literally not easy, but those strengths of being a woman, we nurture, we raise, we manage our careers, our homes, ourselves, and still we look $1 million when we're doing it.
Absolutely, you can say that again, really. I'm just going to touch on something you referenced. I think Lara also started on that, and that's the role of mentoring. And I mean, I've heard people say, I don't really need a mentor. I mean, who mentored the first career person anyway? The first career person didn't have a mentor, so why do I need to have a mentor? So if you could just link that up, just how big a role did mentoring play in you being who you are today?
Thank you very much, Kayode. And to those that think they don't need a mentor, wow, what does it look like from the right hand of God? Because clearly you're sitting up there for you to think you don't need a mentor. I say, from my perspective, I feel that there are two kinds of mentors, right? So this is no professor has gone to study this. This is from my experience. You can have a formal mentor, like this fantastic platform provides to you and makes available for you. You could also have an informal mentor, someone that doesn't even know you exist. Case in point, I just mentioned, right? And what do you do with this? Mentorship is very, very important. If you're fortunate enough to have somebody who's willing to invest their time in you to take you through. Now, let me just put it down very simply. Go back, let's take it back to, I always love to take it back to primary school, yeah? You move from one stage to the next. Someone has taken pains to define what that stage 1 is, stage 2, stage 3, and they let you know whether you passed or not. A mentor helps you do that. A mentor helps you put your goals into perspective. You can dream. Look, everybody can dream. Literally close your eyes and you're dreaming. But without a proper plan, a pathway to the attainment of that dream, you may as well take Valium and just stay sleeping because nothing is going to happen. So when you have that mentor system, especially if you're able to get a formal one, I keep highlighting able to get a formal one because the reality is that not everybody might be able to get a formal mentor. Where you're unable to get a formal mentor, understand the value of mentorship. You can even have a peer. People fail to realize a peer mentor, an anchor, your safe point, someone who can keep you honest, right? Who can say, so Lara and I could catch up and say, oh, how's it going? How's it going in the female, in the male world kind of thing? And we talk about it just by doing back and forth in that way. We encourage each other. A mentor is not meant to mollycoddle you. I see some people expect that. A mentor is not meant to write your business plan or become the chairman of your board of directors or anything like that. You actually do the work. And the mentor is kind of like that teacher, right? Who is looking to see, did you consider it from this angle? Did you consider it from this angle? Now that is more of the formal structured one, but for the informal one, which is one thing I really advocate that women, we begin to do more because social media has made practically everybody accessible. We are now more open. I was speaking to a senior female today and she was describing someone else and she said, oh, she's very good. She's a private person and stuff like that. But the reality is today, I make bold to say practically everybody has some sort of internet presence. You Google, you can find some information. If you're struggling in something, it could be that you're even struggling with the typical thing that career women struggle with, mom guilt of, oh, I am missing this recital today, right? I can't be here at this particular time. And then you find something, let's say you stumble on Owen's page where she's talking about how she had to miss this, but she made up for it with this. Or how she was fortunate to learn from a mentor at a very young age, Omobola Johnson. I saw her, she's one of our whisker. I love her to bits. Who taught me very early on in my career is that it's not about the quantity of time, but it's the quality of time that you spend in doing things. You draw inspiration from those people's experience. And it's just that one thing that keeps you going. Concept of mentorship, remember, no man, no woman is an island. And when you have a mentor, be it formal, be it informal, you begin to build that support structure that will coach you and take you to the next level.
Amazing words, really. Let me come to the co-founder and CEO of Iwosan Investments. I mean, this conversation was meant to take a different trajectory, but I mean, saying that mentoring is what we're discussing now, I just thought we could just spend more time. And you have a view from the top. your antecedents are beyond impressive. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel good. I mean, talk about Hygia. You started Iwosan, co-founded Iwosan during COVID-19 at a time when people were essentially, taking steps back. You went into the thick of things. And I don't know, from your view, a lot of young people look at people who have made it and imagine that, a lot of things go through their minds. But essentially, I'd like to know, in terms of a mentor-mentee relationship, you must have had a couple in the past. What are the do's and don'ts? How do you approach a mentor? How do you not approach a mentor? What are the things to expect? What are the things not to expect? Sort of set a boundary, as it were.
Good. Yes, good morning. You can hear me. Okay, good morning, everybody. And well done again to Whisker for bringing us all together. I think already, Owen and Lara have already opened up that discussion. And so maybe I'll just sort of speak from the more personal experience, as you say, of the mentorship divide. As Owen has already said, where you seek your mentors can be in so many different forms, whether formal or informal. I even say you even need to sometimes look at home, because at home you can find mentors in your siblings, in your parents to some extent, in your spouse, because everybody has something to share. Everybody has something to learn from each other. Everyone has that experience somewhere, of success or failure and so on and so forth. So sometimes mentorship, as you rightly said, is not necessarily the very sort of formal process. It can just be the informal of grabbing somebody for 5 minutes or 10 minutes on a particular issue or a particular subject. I've also been extremely fortunate to have what I'll call a fantastic pool of egbons. I have to use that word, a lot of the fabulous women sitting here, and a lot of fabulous men as well, who, again, it's sometimes just being that 5-10 minutes, but being conscious of the fact that they are busy people. So therefore, knowing that you're not necessarily going to be able to get an hour at a stretch, knowing that you have to book time ahead with them, knowing that you have to be extremely sure of what your issue is, so that you're not going there to just speak around and around and around. You can cut to the chase quickly, and therefore be able to really get the most of their time. But I think also I found, because I have mentored formally on Whisker, and I have really loved that experience. I've also mentored in other programs. I also mentor a lot informally, again, anyone, to be honest, whether employees or past employees, family and friends. I find that similarly, just as I have learned from people, it's great that I can share with them. But guess what? I'm also still learning, even as I spend time with them. So mentorship is not a one-way street. Even though you think you are teaching, you're also getting back and learning and creating that loop again and again. So I think it's really just that, yes, for you to do either to mentor or be mentored, be conscious of time, because time is the one thing that is not, in excess supply. Be conscious of what the key issues are that you really want to bring to the table. Be conscious of sometimes being able to do it in informal settings. Yeah. I was talking recently with Mr. Adeshola and another group of women about, I have this group, we call ourselves the Power Girls. Some people try to call us the Power Puff Girls, but it's 5 of us. We're great friends. Some of us have been friends for 25 years. Some of us have been friends for less, but somehow we all just connected. And we found out that, yes, even though we're friends, we didn't want to be Ashwebi friends. Do you know what I mean? We wanted to be friends that, yes, we take ourselves out, we go and watch a movie, we share, stories, share issues, pain points, our children, whatever. But then we realized, like Owen said, we wanted to hold each other accountable. So now we're very deliberate about it, of that accountability. Once every quarter, we touch base, we say, where are you with whatever your plan was for this year? What were the 2 or 3 goals you've set for yourself? We remind each other, we pinch each other, particularly pinch each other when we're like, you haven't done it, to how far, and so on. And that was just from a group of friends. So again, there we respected each other's time, but we can probably get more than we would if it was a more formal mentor. So I think you just have to think about the different formats.
Amazing. I'm not just a moderator, I'm actually learning a lot myself. So thank you very much. Let me take this to the MDC of Lotus Bank. I feel like mentoring essentially some form of partnership, as it were. I mean, two-way street, as you called it. And that brings me to the point about men. And I like what Whisker is doing, really. Whisker is not going all out to say we don't need men, essentially. It's a partnership. So I'd like, from your, 30 years of banking experience, I mean, you have vast knowledge, you have vast interaction with men at different levels. How do we bring this to bear? Is it, I mean, can there be a man mentor, female mentee, and all that? And how should we approach? I say we as though I'm a woman. How should women approach? How should women approach men in this sort of setting?
Okay, thank you very much, Coyote. Good morning, everybody. And thank you, Whisker, for inviting me here. I smiled when Owen mentioned the fact that the banking industry is one of those industries where men want to keep being in control. I'm going to do a bit of storytelling. Starting in the bank, most of what we do requires us to discuss and relate with each other, take decisions. And the men felt because they are out there that we have more voice than we will do. The first thing is don't be gender sensitive. Do not be gender sensitive. I won't say be a tomboy, but just try and be yourself. The first thing is be deliberate, have some stealth in you in such a way that they'll start to listen to you and they will start to consider you when they're taking decisions. Now, how do you relate with men and get them to mentor you? Because believe it or not, there are areas where you can gain from them. We've been talking about mentoring thus far without trying to compartmentalize. Mentoring has to be broken down into different areas. There's a technical part of mentoring, there's a social part of mentoring. The social part requires us to ensure that we can relate with people. Many women don't have that opportunity to be exposed like men. We're technically competent, yes, but that ability to relate with them, later, socialize, influence, we have to learn. So what I did in my own career is to relate more with the men than with the women. I went out with them, I listened to them, I became their mentor too. I had my own areas of strength, so it was an exchange kind of arrangement that I had with them. Where I'm strong, I would support you. I have some technical competence. The social side where I was weak, I would talk to them. I have this idea and I want everybody to take it on. So I would have what I call my support group before I get to the meeting. Achieving in the workplace requires you to be an influencer. It requires you to be impactful. It's not just about your competence. So what I did was to try and get them on my side. I would have spoken to them before the meeting, arranged my thoughts, and then they would give me some ideas as to how I can impact or influence the decision my way. And they won't realize they're giving me that. So they were indirectly mentoring me. But I had one or two direct mentors because not only were they intelligent, they also had that emotional intelligence that I lacked. I'm somebody who is a bit hot-tempered. So I had those ones who will tell me, this is the response you will get. So when you get there, don't be angry. Do not lose your temper. They will play at that weakness that you have. So do not lose your temper. So I had that mentor. I had the one for the technical side that was difficult for me, which is what I would call the figure side of things. And it will take me through financial statement analysis and so on. So mentoring indirectly, whilst also teaching. So it's like mentoring is not just about getting you to where you want to go. It's also about helping you with your fears, helping with you with achieving that goal with which you want to achieve. So it also means you have to socialize with your mentor. You have to be open with your mentor. If you are too shy to say what your weaknesses are, they can't help you. Your mentor is like a medical doctor. So you've got to open up fully. If you don't open up fully, you just have sessions that will not really be impactful. But when you open up fully, you'll be amazed at what you will get from those sessions, whether formal or informal. But believe it or not, it's better sometimes to go with the opposite sex. So yes, men. The second side is you must also be a mentor yourself to the men. You must tell them what your views are about the way they behave. You must tell them that you have a right at the table. You must show them that you are just as competent as they are. When you are put in a breakout session with them, you insist on presenting. Sometimes you insist on heading. You find subtle ways of ensuring that they treat you as equal. So for me, I'm not gender sensitive. I'm not. I try not to be. Because when you are, it's kind of like slows you down.
Right.
But when you put that out of your mind, I just see them as individuals that you want to relate with. You get more from them.
Oh, golden words. And I like the fact that you're real. I mean, you're sharing real examples. I like this uncensored kind of conversation. Owen, I know, but let me just bring this in. You're known to be dependable and result-driven. I don't know if you've ever heard people say, Owen gets the job done.
I've been accused of that.
Guilty as charged, right? But for a lot of people, they see your trajectory. They see it as overnight. I mean, it just happened, and here you are, presidency of Transco. Is there anything as blowing, really, in this journey? Is there overnight success? What is your overnight experience?
Thank you very much, Kayode. And I think I really need to begin to rewrite my profile so people don't think it's an overnight thing. There's no overnight, sorry. I'm really sorry to break anyone's heart who thought there was overnight success. I truly apologize. It's been a journey, yeah? It's been a journey. You have a lady who sits here, who's sitting down here today. For a variety of family reasons, I didn't get to see my biological mom for 15 years of my life. That's another story for another day, right? And I've really had to, there have been trials and tribulations, as you can imagine. A man can mentor a woman, is good, but there's only so far on what they can tell you and coach. Is like, again, with all due respect to the male gynecologist, it's still theory, as opposed to the female gynecologist that knows what you're going through. It's a journey from, I was blessed. I think I've just had people that have touched base with me. I remember being in university and a friend's older brother, I mean, Brosby was like, sorry, Bao, we call him Brosby. He's like, well, 20 years older than we are. He was already working in banking. He was in Habib at the time. I was studying sociology. I had gotten into university at the age of 16 and all of that. And I was looking at changing. And if I was going to year 3, they wanted me to go back to 100 level so I could study what I wanted. And he told me, don't do that. Finish your program. You can go and do a master's. But make sure you don't come out of that school with less than a 2-1. We know you, you're very bright. You could even be a first class. And he explained to me why the 2-1 was important. Because at that point in time, I mean, Ciscaf was in HR. We know there was a time in Nigeria where if you did not have a second-class upper, certain organizations would not consider you at all. So I worked hard. There were a lot of sacrifices because people are going out. We all know what it was to be in university. There are a lot of distractions, but you stay there. So that's where the journey started from. So it's not overnight. Working hard to make that degree that would give me the footstep, the key to even approach a certain door, the courage. Then studying and work. I used to go to CMS. I don't know if they're still there. Those days of GMAT, GRE, those tests that they used to do. I couldn't afford to buy those books. I used to go to CMS there. There was one guy that sells second-hand books and go there and flip. Yes. Right? Then at 7-Up, there's this reader's library that was this side of the road. I can't remember what it's called. Now, Magodo is this way. Then there's this library that used to be there. It was open to the general public. And we'll go there, my friends and I. Why were we going there? They had that GMAT and GRE textbook. Then we saved up 500 naira and bought one that we used to rotate amongst ourselves. So that would be my own power my own power group at the time. And you know what that did though? When we went for tests, we never failed any. None, because we were prepared. So you know this overnight. Then the journey continues, getting into top organizations. But even when I was in that organization, there was something missing. And I had a mentor to look at emotion who would say, if you know your ABC, there's no word you cannot pronounce. That was how she would start when she wants to correct you on anything. She would first start the thing and your brain will come down. And I wanted a career in HR. I can see you laughing because you know her. I wanted a career in HR. So at that point, I said, I need to go for my master's in human resource management. When I applied, I didn't have the money, but I knew that one way it will come. And that concept again of network, I think someone has talked about networking here. I went for a training 2 weeks in Chicago. I met a guy, a Chinese American. Right? We just made friends and stayed in touch through the, remember those AOL.com chats of those days, like yeah, MSN chats back then. I had gotten admission to the London School of Economics. I had no money. And I was just chatting with him. We were touching base on our goals because we had planned we were going to go and do our masters. And I said, hey, Jason, it's looking like I have to defer because I don't have the money. He said, oh, I thought you were applying to the US. I said, well, I can't find a guarantor. And he told me, I'll be your co-signer. This guy has never been to Africa, not to mention Nigeria. He does not know where I live. And there he was co-signing $30,000 for me on his own credit. Now, there are lots of the hard work, preparing yourself. Yes, today I'm the president group CEO, but you said something. I do enjoy a certain reputation. And it's just that concern. I touched on it earlier on about what are the values that you bring in. Being the youngest child with my big brothers, of course, you can imagine, let your mouth be too sharp, you'll be reset very quickly. They ask you to do something, you better do it well, because they were playing both the role of father and mother to me as I was growing up, and they had such high standards. So with that, each job I'm given, even the one I am not given, and please, I want to appeal to women, go beyond what you're told to do. We need to stand out, go beyond what you are told to do. And the reality is that when you keep on, when you build, people have confidence in you, in the little things that you do, what happens? What they tell you, the reward for good work is what? And it just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. And I don't want to bore you too much, but trust me, that has been how my career has grown. That's been how my career has grown from my very first job right out of university in a stockbroking firm to going into banking, then consulting, stepping out. In fact, I remember going for my master's degree. The last, I went to school with my son, he was 3 years old at the time. When I look back now, I think I had mental problem. Because how do you go and do a master's at the LSC and you take a 3-year-old with you? I was sleeping 4 hours a day in that program. It's a tough school because guess what? Nobody's going to reduce the standard for me because I'm a 28-year-old with a 3-year-old son. They don't care, right? But that concept of going the extra, I still try to participate in things that were happening in school. When towards the end of it, when it was time for exams, and my son had chicken pox, I couldn't go to school for 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks is when they were doing the revisions, you know, that revision time, and their coach, usually for an international students, teaching you how to answer, write exams now. Then my stepdad passed on the very first day of my exam. It was like utterly tragic. My what do you call them? The course advisor, because they know that concept of stepping out beyond, I just came there to get a degree, right? But stepping out beyond coming to get a degree, she had taken an interest in me. She wanted to petition the school to say Owen is distinction material, that the only reason she's not getting the distinction right now is because she's just had knocks and whatnot. That I don't think she should get a merit. She needs to be a distinction. I told her, I said, Dr. Jackie, thank you. But guess what? I came here to acquire knowledge. And I have acquired knowledge. For those, actually, HR, we know that your certificate does not mean knowledge. Yes. Please, certificate does not mean knowledge. I went there to acquire knowledge, and knowledge I got. And coming in, look, we have something to do. You've been put on this world for a reason. Please just do it. Do not be manipulative. I meet too many manipulative people and they think it's cute. It's not, right? You have a responsibility. Sit down, get it done. Respect people. And as you keep on, from being asked whether it's to set up these chairs, making sure that it is straight and everything is in its proper place, right? To the big thing of you're asked to MC the whole conference. Each bit adds value. And the more you demonstrate that you can do things, the more people will give you more things. You will be afraid. I have been afraid practically every step of the way, but I have that confidence. I have that belief that he who has brought me so far will give me the grace and the resources to also push through. So it's not overnight, trust me, not at all overnight. And it's interesting that I've had two very phenomenal things happen to me in the last few years of my career. I know I'm running late, but I'm just going to share because I want to inspire, hopefully, someone today. In 2015, I had a son, a much awaited pregnancy, who sadly passed. He was born with a medical condition, trisomy 18, and he passed when he was a month old. A lot of people thought that was it, that I couldn't come out of that. Trust me, I was distraught. But I said to myself, if tears can bring Jason back, note his name, not my networking person before. If tears could bring him back, I would gather everybody into Tafawa Balewa Square. That's what I used to say then. I would all cry. But since tears can bring him back, what I would do with this experience is to create awareness and let people know, even the hospital that didn't manage me properly. And I said, I'm not going to sue you. Yes, it's not something they could have done anything about, but they could have informed me. So it will not be a shock when I have the baby. I said, I'm not going to sue. I'm not about that. I mean, I don't believe that money makes the world go round. I'm sorry. I said, rather, you put processes in place so that if you are managing a woman who is above 35, this test will be mandatory. And they did it. From that, coming out of that, and that having that mentor understanding, but I really cannot talk about my career without appreciating Mr. Tony Elumelu. I have to say it. Because an emotionally intelligent boss. The truth, I want to say that, but for his intervention, understanding where I was at that point in time, I may have given up. I resumed work. So my son passed September 25th. September 18th, what's wrong with me? I came back to Nigeria a week later, September 25th. I tried to go back to work October 2nd. I resumed, I couldn't. I sent him a message. I said, see, I'm struggling. I need to go home. He said, go, come back whenever you're ready. I came back the next week. I was kind of okay, but still not too okay. Then I wanted to go for a CIPD conference in Manchester. He said, go. I don't know if you're that concept again of having that sponsor, that person who can speak for you, you're not there. I went and my sanity, I started restoring, I started recovering. I became CEO of Transcorp Hotels as a nursing mother. How many people would give you that opportunity? They did not say, oh, your baby is 7 months old and you have to relocate to Abuja. Rather, I was given the opportunity to say yes or no. And when I said yes, the organization provided the supporting infrastructure to go there. And I wanted to share these two experiences for us as women, because as you know, these are things that typically would hold you back. Right. That's it. But the things that should hold you back, please, I beg of you, push through and make them your launch pad. Thank you.
You can tell how passionate she is. She's overshot her schedule by 11 minutes just to share that. But thank you so much. It's been an honor hearing your story. And hearing you tell the real, the true, and uncensored stories. Thank you so much. And I wish you the very best. Let's put our hands together for Owen and Morgiafo. He was the president and CEO of Transcorp.
Hello. Just before Owen goes, I would like to have a quick picture with the panelist and the founder, please.
Don't worry, the panel discussion continues. Just a quick picture. and then we'll continue.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome back from that break. Was that a commercial or a photo break? Okay, so we continue a panel discussion, and I'd like to take this to Lara. So we've talked about mentoring, essentially what you can do as a person to develop yourself, to help, meet that goal, achieve that plan that you have. But then there are things outside of your control, and that takes me to organizations. What organizations can do to ensure an enabling environment for women, essentially. So what are those areas you think that organizations are not doing well and they can improve upon?
Okay, thank you, Kaidi. Strategy is what it is, and existing cultures have a way of eating the strategy for breakfast. Then you have initiatives that potentially could just stay on paper. What we've seen in our organization especially is the need to have particular practical structures that affect the full life cycle of the employee. Then you need watchdogs that would be on the lookout to make sure that those practical steps are taken. I'll give you examples. First, you have to be able to attract the right gender or women in the first instance. So your job ads have to be gender neutral. Your pre-interview assessments have to be gender blind. Your interviewing panel has to be diversified. Even when the employee gets into the organization, you need things like preparation for mentoring. You've heard everybody say that you don't just go into a mentoring session, select the mentors properly. The men that are allies, make sure that you project them as well so that they see that their efforts are not in vain. But also create high impact experiences for the women. I feel we have a lot of management expressing bias when they take a decision that a woman cannot do it. Give her the opportunity. Let her be the one to determine whether or not she can do it. Let her be the one to determine the support she needs to be successful. Then I would also call out women who are in leadership positions. I, for one, have committed that I would devote my life, invest all of who I am into developing people. And I have a particular bias for African women. But I also had to take the strong decision that I would allow women around me be the full expression of themselves. One of the most difficult times when I had to bring myself to test was when I worked with a colleague that went on 3 consecutive maternities. And I had to tell myself, this is a choice of what she's decided to do for whatever family reasons. I had to remind myself that there are actually people in the organization who wanted that role. Therefore, let me give them the opportunity for the short-term assignments in that role. And I think for me, it's also a good opportunity to give a big shout out to Ibukun. Ibukun is our HR in Maersk in Nigeria. She's a super change agent in this regard. If you have a job ad that is gender specific, it's going back. When we employ females, she tells me, Lara, book your time, you're going to talk to this person. This lady needs to see that women have brains in this industry and they can get there. So Ibukun, thank you very much for being who you are. And thank you for helping me stay on track.
Thank you, Ibukun. Let me just join my voice to that appreciation. Let me come to Fola. I want to bring in another dimension, which is age. I mean, we talked about gender for a while, mentoring and that. I mean, you became, let me just get this right, the CEO of Hygia HMO and Group CEO of Hygia Group in your 30s. Mm-hmm. Eventually became the chair of the board before your mid-40s. And honestly, that's a significant and somewhat downplayed achievement. I see a lot of young people here. And I mean, they're women, they're young. I mean, some will say that's what double jeopardy, but it can actually be your double strength as well. So how do you bring those things together to achieve what you want to achieve?
Yeah. I think in my case, I mean, Kari, you hit your spot on there. Mine was probably even a triple jeopardy because I was also not a doctor. So I was coming into leading a healthcare company, which was very unusual at its time. This was, 25 years ago when we didn't even really have healthcare companies. We were making them and, not being medical, being female, and then, like you said, being young. So what did that mean? It meant, as you said, I had to bring out everything in myself, really, to, bring it to the table. And what sorts of things did I have to bring to the table? I had to think through, first of all, how to really form relationships. Again, we are in this environment where there's respect. So you have to treat your elders with a lot of respect. You have to treat men with a lot of respect. And I was also dealing in what I would call a highly skilled environment, because doctors are highly skilled people. They are highly trained, highly skilled. And in particular, in our case, we were dealing with the leaders of our medical leaders were surgeons who are even another level of skill. So how do I really sort of form ways of relationships, of really winning their trust, of really being able to be taken seriously, if I can use that word. And that's one thing that we always have to think about. I think we've talked about it a bit, about making sure that whenever you have the opportunity to come, you come knowing your onions, knowing your facts, knowing what you want to talk about. I had to do much more research just so that I could really understand whatever the topics were that I wanted to discuss. But I also had to, like I said, find ways of creating those relationships. I'll tell you my own true story. One thing that I'd been passionate about, and to be honest, if I'd had my way, I would have been what you now these days call a football pundit. I was passionate about football from when I was 10 years old. And I would go to matches with my brother and his friends, to the stadium. I told my dad I wanted to be Fabio Olanipekun. I don't know if you remember who Fabio Olanipekun is, for those who do, and so on. But I brought that because I realized that was a way actually of relating with everybody, because football, especially in Nigeria, is just a leveler. Once you can discuss a shared passion, you find that way also of using it to build relationships, young and old, male or female, especially with men. So that was one thing I used on a more social, side to really make friends. But I also had to be bold. There was just no two ways about it. I had to be, you know, when they say do it afraid, but be bold. I mean, I had to do certain things like step into, you laugh, but it was the coffee room of the operating theater. It was this inner sanctum where the men gathered. It was the equivalent of walking into a bar, basically, in our own setting, because the surgeons would gather there once they'd finished surgery. But that was where decisions were being made. They were choosing the people they wanted to hire. They were choosing the materials they wanted to use, and so on. So I realized that I had to find a way in there. I wasn't a surgeon. I wasn't male. So can you imagine? Because it was attached to the male changing room. But I wasn't afraid. That was one thing I wasn't. And therefore, whenever they came out of their surgery, they would find me sitting there, ready to converse, to gist, and to figure out what they needed. And slowly, I got them to move the meeting into what I'll call the conference room from the coffee room. So, but it was something that I had to deliberately do to really change that. But then what else did I have to do? I also then had to realize what was it that I could bring to people in that system that would make them better versions of themselves? Because that's what it's all about in the end, you know, to manage people or manage resources. It's also to give them the opportunity to really sort of deliver at their maximum sort of potential. So that meant training, of course. So wherever there were training opportunities and a lot of, shall I say, business training for medical people. So I sort of figured out how could we bring that in. But it also meant tools. What were the tools? Capital. That was the one thing. That was the language I could speak. I understood money and resources and finding capital. So I then made that very much my thing to bring that platform. So even though I was young, I brought a significant amount of capital to the table that allowed the company to grow. But in doing all of this, the one thing I did realize was I had to also make them realize or make the business realize that who was our customer? Over 50% of our customer are women. And I think you heard a story earlier that how much maternal health is such a big deal, such a big issue still, not just in Nigeria, but everywhere. And therefore, how do we make sure that bringing the women and women's health issues into every conversation? We were just building health insurance platforms at the time, working with the National Health Insurance Scheme. We had to make sure that maternal health was integrated into the benefit package for women, for healthcare, you know, for health insurance, you know, so that how could we really see, so that way we understood that you had a product because, you know, you had such a big customer.
Amazing. And I like the fact that you're delving deep into your field. I mean, an accountant in the health sector playing big, perhaps at the biggest level. And that takes me to Kapila, the MD CEO of Lotus Bank. I think you share that in common. Is the accounting or money? I mean, your position as the MD CEO of Lotus Bank, which, as a lot of people might not know, is a non-interest bank, as it were. People will ask, what is non-interest banking essentially? So if you could just quickly take us, this is a detour, I know, but it's the elephant in the room as well. What is it? What's non-interest banking? And is there perhaps financing in it for women? Because you cannot achieve your goals sometimes if you don't have that finance.
Well, I don't know what to say about the detour. I wish we continued along the line we're going on, but it's okay. No, it's fine. Non-interest banking is still simply banking. It's financial intermediation. The difference is that it's governed by Sharia guiding principles, and those principles forbid interest and some other aspects of industry. You can't participate in the alcohol industry, in firearms, in harmful products like cigarettes and so on. So that's one side. Then non-interest banking, really, the foundation is based on assets. It's asset-backed and it's risk-sharing. And what that does for anybody who comes into a non-interest banking space is that there's equity, there's transparency. In everything that we do, we ensure that there's profit sharing, there's risk sharing, and there is a tangible asset behind whatever we want to finance. So from the female angle, When you look at Nigeria today, most of the traders are women. Most of the unbanked too are women, believe it or not. So when we are talking about financial inclusion, we are talking about women. How do we get them on board? I would explain very quickly. The way we do our own banking is pretty simple. You are a trader and we want to bring you on board. We want to help you grow. We want to build your capacity. What we will do is give you products that you can relate to. So you are buying things to sell. So essentially, that's why you need financing. So we would buy and then we'll put a markup. What that then means is you pay us the cost of the goods plus the markup. And then you know the cost of the goods. Most times you are the agent that will go and buy it on our behalf, but we will not give you cash. So money is never a commodity in Islamic banking. Money is used to back asset transactions. So that is one aspect of how we support women. The other aspect is we can lease what we want to buy for you. That's another product we have. We can also do what is called a salam. Believe it or not, also in farming, most of the people in farming are women. From the perspective of harvesting, the women go to the farm with their men and they harvest. They also go out there and trade it. What we do in that case is a product called salam. So we are paying for the goods before it's produced. And when we pay for it, so that's like we're financing pre-production or pre-export financing. And then so it's the same as the conventional banking, so that the principle is based on equity. The beautiful part of what we also do is when there are penalties either on the side of the bank or penalties on the side of the customer. For the customer late payment, for the bank, your transaction is not structured around an asset. Then those monies go into charity. Most charity organizations actually take care of women and their children. So really, the kind of way Islamic banking supports women is not just from the business side, but from the survival side. Lastly, so that it doesn't become a non-interest finance session, is that equity and justice is the underlying principle. That in anything you are doing, nobody must benefit beyond the other person. So you are sharing the profit, you are sharing the risk, and you are transparent in what you are doing, and you are not encouraging harmful production. Right. And that is why we also discourage uncertainty in business, we discourage gambling, and we encourage learning as well. We encourage learning by working with you through your process, through your business. And when we're working with you through your process, we're actually giving you free financial advice, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for obliging me on that detour. And I think it's quite important. Is this for everyone, by the way? Just to be clear.
Well, definitely it's for everyone. Like I said, if I can buy the goods of the trader, I can buy what the large corporates are selling. We're doing it today. We buy what they require to produce, the raw materials, the manufacturers, and then we on-sell it to them. Most times they're the agent that would buy it, and we lease equipment for them. You've heard of the sukuk, that is being used to build roads today. It's the Islamic bond. So it's for everybody, whether at the large corporate end, the middle, or the micro, medium, and small business enterprises. It cuts across. The products are pretty easy to follow, like I just explained, leasing, cost plus, buying products when they're not ready, and then there's something for construction, which is the insist-now. We take on the construction. When it's concluded, we then on-sell to the person who requires what is being constructed.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Whisker will be sending a bill to her eventually for explaining all of this, but we have about 10 minutes to round up. And I'm wishing we can actually take questions, perhaps 1 or 2 questions from the audience, because I imagine a lot of people also want to ask questions. So we'll try to race to the finish line quickly. And I'll just do a round robin, as it were. A lot of questions I want to ask, but because of time, let's wind down. And I'd like you to share an experience. Might be yours, might not be yours, but the idea is to tell the audience one mistake that you have made or you've seen women make, I mean, in your journey here, that you would not like the people listening to make, essentially. So you could just cast your mind back. Perhaps your mistake, you can tag it on someone else, so I won't say you made that mistake anyway. But the point is to help people know what potholes, what hurdles to avoid. And I'll begin with Lara.
By talking about my confidence level. I'm a big believer in what William Housett said, that as your capacity is subject to the level of your confidence. When I started, in spite of the fact that I had been on expatriation in UK, I had come back to Nigeria, I still felt weird in a room of men. I still felt very weird in the room of expatriates. And the tendency for me to actually undermine the characteristics, the qualities that I had acquired over the years was there. And it was a male mentor that pointed this out to me. He said to me, the men in this room are not your dads, they are not your boyfriends, they are your colleague. So step up to what it is that you are called to do. But there was a time we were doing what you call a restructuring. And Glenn just popped into my office. I was working late. I believe what Owen said, always go that extra mile. I was working late and he said to me, Lara, I hope you have the good sense to apply for, he mentioned the job. This job was 6 job levels higher than what I was currently doing. Look at me sitting down thinking I couldn't do it. A man on the other side actually saw that you can actually do it. So for the first time, and this was an international job that you had people all over the world applying for. And I looked for the first time at the job ad and I realized that I could actually tick a lot of the boxes. Please, women, do not seek anybody's permission to succeed. Seize it.
Amazing words there. Confidence. Confidence. You said earlier, charge your confidence.
No. William Housett said that as your confidence, so is your capacity. And I charge my confidence to the fullest every day, the way other people charge their phones.
Exactly. Golden words. Exactly. I heard that and it just stuck for me. Charge your confidence the same way you charge your phones. Kafilat, please.
Manage your emotions. You know, as women, we can be very emotional. And then our hormones does not help matters as well. I will talk about myself and my experience. You know, I will be there quiet, but bottling up a lot of issues or things. And then suddenly, so I became very unpredictable. There will be this outburst and they'll be shocked. What that does is it can put people off you or watch you closely because they'll be like, you're unpredictable. That's not the sin, but the sin is that because you're unpredictable, we can't determine what you will do. So you've got to be very calm, very, very calm. Take situations in your stride and don't go into your shell if things don't go your way, because we do that as well. Don't go into your shell. Take it in your stride. Men are very good at taking shocks. There will be shocks in the workplace. There will be things you don't expect. There are times you have high expectations about promotion, about where you're going to, and it won't go that way. Don't let it color the way you behave in the workplace. Do not let it affect you. In fact, be emotionless up to a point. Because when you're emotionless, you think better, you take decisions better, you plan better. What you've just got to do is realize that anything can happen. Plan and have plan B. Don't also rely on people who is my friend. And then when you are in the workplace, there is no friend. In fact, there is a shocker I have for you. It's a political setting. When I was at Cranfield, the professor said to me, you say, you know, I thought I was saying something nice. That buzzword, I don't play politics. He looked at me with shock and he said, how did you become a general manager? Again, my emotions came out. This man is trying to insult me now. He said, no, I've got to talk to you and address you seriously. So he had a private session with me afterwards. He said, you are where you are now, you won't go further. If you don't begin to understand that the workplace, you have to plan around it. You have to look at the workplace and realize that at some point, competence stops.
Right.
Trust me. By the time you're a manager, it's no longer about your competence. Yes, it's assumed that you'll be competent, but you are not a leader, you are managing people. You are not the hands-on person. So you've got to understand how to relate with people. You've got to find how you find those people that will be your support group. There is no change management course you go for, and they won't tell you that the first thing is you have to have a way to present yourself. You must have your burning platform, your manifesto, and then those who will support it. Is that not politics?
So apparently.
Please.
So Honorable Abike is not the only politician in this place.
Honestly, even directed me to an Harvard publication on politics in the workplace. And he kept on saying, at a certain level, you want to influence. Leadership is influencing, achieving results through people. How would you achieve results through your subordinates without playing around? Who is good in this area? Who can I get to do this? And at the senior level too, those who will influence and ensure that those plans you have are implemented. You must manage them. You must relate to them. That's politics, please. I made that mistake. Please don't make it. You have to plan. You have to be deliberate. And you have to relate well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, these are things that you have to learn in high-level courses. You're just getting here today, and it just goes to show how important Whisker is changing the narrative for women. On a final note, Fola, your experience.
Not being afraid of affirmative action, of bringing other women in. Sort of, again, because I was young and one of only sort of female managers, there was that time where it was like for you to say you wanted to bring in more women or other women, it was something you had to, again, not appear to be emotional about. It had to be, because then men were still very much used to that comfort zone of being in a room full of other men. And, so very early on, it was difficult sometimes when you wanted to suggest, and I've seen it also, not just for myself, but even sitting on boards and with other senior women managers, where they have found it difficult to really push for another woman because it would be taken in the wrong context. But I think it is important that we do so, because as we've said, you work best, with your peer group. We have found women to be as competent, even more competent than quite a few men, and they can deliver. So we have to make that case. We have to make that real case, because there's still not enough of us in the room for it to be automatic. So you do have to go out on a limb. Going out on a limb, as we said, yes, can either, handled in the right political way, would hopefully give the right result. Sometimes you have to do it anyway, even though there might be consequences, because the more we build that, I think at a point in time, I certainly, I guess I had the option anyway of already being a CEO, and therefore I could build an exco of women. So I built an exco that was more than 50% women, and which gave them that opportunity to bring in other women. And that's why now on any board I sit on, I still look at that and still work with the top team, work with even my board member colleagues, to say, look, we have to make this a really deliberate effort to really bring in more women. So that voice, that confidence we're talking about, we can build it because there are more of us in the room. So it's really important that we do what we can to bring more women into the room.
Thank you so much. So confidence, your emotions, and do not be afraid of affirmative action. Amazing words. I don't know, do we still have time for questions? Okay, yes, they've made a concession for us. 3 minutes. 3 questions. Wow, that's magnanimous. Thank you. So 3 slots for questions. Okay. Oh, forgive me. That's a time. Oh, 1, 2.
Online.
And there's a question online. Oh, okay, so our online audience too. I don't know if we could get questions from there up. So please, we'll start with 1. That's the lady to the extreme end. So you just tell us your name and then you ask the question.
Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon to you. My name is Amaka Chibuzobi, and I run an organization called Wives Roundtable. Thank you very much to the panelists. My question is this. As women, there are certain things that we naturally struggle with. And one of them, I'll speak for myself, is compromising. Now, we are in a country where lots of industries are riddled with corruption. How do you get past this? How do you work effectively if you find yourself in an industry that you know for a fact that you have to do some certain things to get things done. If you want the work done, you need to do certain things, and you know for a fact that this goes against the values you hold dear, but you need to get the work done. So how do you manage all of that so that you're effective and your work is going and you're growing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would ask Lara to answer that. She knows why. But please, can we have your question? I'll sort of designate the questions if you don't mind. Okay, you can chip in as well, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this great opportunity to be here today. I'm an incoming mentee, and already it's a loaded session.
I'll put our hands together for her.
All right. The first question, but before I say my question, I really appreciate the fact that all the great women here today have spoken of competence in what you do, doing the best at what you do, which has been something that's been very important to me since I started working about 6 years ago. I'm an engineer, and I'll be moving into consulting very soon, and consulting in energy. Now, one of the very important questions I have, and you've been talking about, is in mentorship and sponsorship, right? Is to ask that when you get into work, how do you identify, what qualities do you look for in people that you want to mentor you or people you want to sponsor you? In as much as you do the best at what you do, and as somebody has rightly said, that also when you're working, you have to know how to play the politics, you have to understand what's going on in the company. When you're going in, how do you identify the right qualities and who to follow? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, thank you so much to everyone for the wonderful session. It's been very impactful. I work in the HR space, and I think for me, the struggle has always been what the lady at Mesa said about the right to have a voice isn't always accompanied by the right to be taken seriously. I hope I got that line correctly. So please, I would like to know better how to probably identify in very practical ways when you're being taken seriously to achieve your outcome or your results, as against when you're being, sort of being tossed around so they don't hurt your feelings. I think I get that a lot in terms of, let's not make her feel bad or something of that sort. But then you know within yourself that you have context and you have depth in what you're doing, but you just want the guys in the room to just know that you're being serious and you want to be taken seriously to actually achieve the results you're looking to achieve. So if you can just give us some more practical steps to know that and what we can do differently to have a different outcome. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So 2 questions for Lara. Please, you can chip in and then you can ask them the second question. So please, Lara.
Thank you very much. Solid questions. I'll go fast because I can see Tokubo signaling that time. So for the first question, I would say be authentic. Dare to be the first-rate version of yourself. As women, we have the tendency of having all sorts of embellishments, to augment our personalities, but be who you are. Being authentic requires courage. It requires a heavy dose of integrity and also vulnerability. And it's a choice that you make every day. The shipping and logistics industry is known for its corruption. And Kade said he would ask Lara to answer that because he knows that there's some people that look at me as a disgrace to Nigerians because people know what I stand for. I don't do things the way, I do things the right way. Once people know what you stand for, you also have to be ready to suffer the consequences of it. Because for me, some of the consequences are a security risk. We have Nigerians who are not used to being rejected. And that automatically becomes a security risk for someone like me because I refuse to bow to the corrupt demands that they have. So my answer to that is be authentic. Let people know early on what you stand for. Calculate the cost of being authentic because you will lose business. Things would happen, but just calculate the cost and weigh it against your aspiration to be the first-rate version of yourself. The second thing, I hope that answers your first question. The second question is about how do people take you more seriously? Now, one of the things I would ask you to do is please learn. Learn wide, learn fast. Learn as fast as you can over a wide area of interest. The reason why I say that is because from my experience, learning has increased my confidence. When you're confident, you appear more credible. That's the first part. The second part is apply the things that you have learned, because that is what actually accelerates your growth. Then as a woman, you probably want to spend time understanding the innate habits that set women back, because you don't know how you're coming across most of the time. We have a disease to please as women, and it makes you go into this stakeholder engagement that way. I learned the hard way that the more I tried to appease or please, the more I was trampled on. So I had a season in my career where I had to cultivate the courage to be disliked.
Okay, thank you very much.
Courage to be disliked.
Yes. In addition to what Lara said, the reality is Nigeria today is a desert of morality. You know, and we're known for it. But we need people who will form the oasis that will one day come together to form a river of morality and values. We have intelligent people, but we are not doing well presently because of character, because of our values. The value system is what is making us suffer. We go everywhere, we suffer. Now, I will give you personal experience as to how the bank I used to work for handled what you just said. The truth is, be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Remain principled. If you don't even have character of principles, how can you be respected? Believe me, those who expect you to compromise would actually shift if you do not compromise. They will not come to you for rubbish. People actually stratify institutions and individuals into those two buckets: morally principled and corrupt. So even those you think won't forgive you or you won't have a space, will give you space when they need someone serious or when they need someone to trust. Believe me, that is you. They will come to you. But when you are corrupt, when it is really critical, when they should take you serious, when there is a big prize, they would not consider you. So don't think you are losing out when you are compromising. Do not compromise. Now, I said I will tell you the story of when we first started public sector, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions at anybody. You had to do a lot of things to get them to give you business. I won't use those words. But guess what? We remain true to ourselves. You would be sacked if you are not to try and not encourage people to give us business by bribing or trying to do funny things. And we did not. But guess what? When they have serious transactions, they'll come to you because they're looking at two things. This is serious. They don't want anybody who can compromise their own life too to handle that business. And so image began to grow from that. So when you're competent and you are principled, you do better than the man who is competent and not principled. Anyway, when you're not principled, you are incompetent. Take it from me, because we do things the wrong way sometimes just to get things unfairly. So it's clear. Remain true to yourself, remain principled. In fact, remain firm. There's something called core values. Those values that even if heavens are falling, you would not deviate from. It will give you place where you do not expect. It will give you respect. And those ones that you don't get, they are not for you. Whatever is it you don't get because you don't compromise, it's not for you. Yours will come. Not everybody is expecting corruption. I have had personal experience. Only once did anybody approach me to try and give me an incentive. When they saw my reaction, in fact, you can try to be a change agent. You lecture them. Don't fight, don't be rude, don't be nasty, and they'll feel small. Subsequently, they never came to me. Once again, they tried through a staff, and that one said, I can't go to her. And it was at a time when I was actually broke. And I told the girl, what did you tell the person? She said, I told them immediately. So every day of your life, you'll be tempted. It's now up to you whether you want to be respected or. And don't forget, even when you get to the peak, there will be those who won't forget when you compromised. I will say, you see that governor, I remember when I took some envelopes to him. Yes, trust me. So we need to save Nigeria. And if we all here can come together to remain principled and form that oasis that want to one day come together to form a river and change our image. Please, let's do it. Thank you.
Wow.
Maybe
I don't know if we're
one
all,
thing,
pardon me, making that commitment to remain principled and be people of integrity. Are we all making that commitment? Oh, I love that.
maybe one thing I would just add to that is that we are mothers, or will be mothers one day if we're not already. And therefore, we have to also think on that level of what do we want to pass on to our children? What values do we want them to have? They see everything we do. They know everything we are. There's social media, everything is out there. So really and truly, that issue of holding on to values, holding on to competence more than anything else is really, really important in this particular time in our lives as mothers. Because I mean, I have teenage children who are coming up now into their own sphere of the world, of what influence and impact they're going to make. It's down to us to set that example. So we also need to please think about that, even as we're doing what we're doing today, that we also still have that role for, for the generation to come.
Thank you. I think that's an important point to reiterate. But the second question, just before we take the online question, it's on sponsorship and mentorship qualities to look out for.
Right, yes. So just going on, and I think Lara had started on that about just, knowing your onions, coming across as somebody who is well-read, who has sort of looked for information. Because again, you have to have a lot of information at your disposal to be able to then bring up your questions, bring up the areas in where you want support and advice. So I think it's very important. But the other thing too is that you have to come across as somebody who delivers on performance, because performance is extremely important. You have to already come with a track record to some extent, or even if not a track record, but that as you're going through the process, that you're willing to go out there and deliver and to perform. The more you perform, the more, mentors and other people will be drawn to you in helping you on that journey. I have certainly had, a mixed bag. Luckily, I've had some great mentees. I've had some who haven't been as great. And what has the difference been? The great ones have been the ones who've done the work, who've come with their knowledge, who've come up with their goals, and they have consistently met those goals. Right. And then it's easy to go work with them on the next goal. The ones who come and then don't show up for 1 month or 2 months, and then they haven't even really done whatever you discussed last time, there's no energy in that discussion. There's no energy in that relationship. So I think it's important to really make sure that you perform. And maybe the final one is taking feedback. And I think that's something even all of us still have to do. The feedback is sometimes positive, sometimes it's not so positive, but you have to be able to use that feedback and use it again to re-engineer, through that process.
Thank you very much. Now, speaking of feedback, we have about 2 minutes or so to take the final feedback.
So really quickly from the online audience, we have commendations. Thank you very much for a productive session. Well done to the convener, organizing team, panelists, and excellent moderator. A few questions. Can a woman who is at the bottom of the pyramid with almost nothing, but just her determination and desperation to succeed, still be able to thrive in this highly competitive world? And the other one is about managing mental health and encouraging diversity at the workplace. So if anyone who can speak about that. Okay, finally, there's just this comment or question that says,
sorry, let me just try to rephrase. The first question is, can a woman who's at the bottom of the pyramid rise to the top? I mean, who just has determination, I think. And the second one is about mental.
Yes, mental health, managing mental health and diversity, encouraging diversity at the workplace.
Okay. So do we have any takers?
I think I'm certainly with the first one. Again, I have a very sort of live experience of a mentor, of a mentee who came to me, from a very humble background, I'll say, had done very well in university, had gotten her first job, but, really wanted to go places. She had a whole roadmap of what she wanted to do, and what she wanted to achieve. But not just did she have limited resources, but she was the literally sole breadwinner of the family. She was looking after her parents and her brother and herself. And so she, really everything she was working for was going into that direction. But she just, was resilient. So we sat and we planned. And again, we've heard stories today of how, yes, with sitting and planning and reaching out and opening into the network, found grants, found funding, and so on for that the next step for her was going off abroad to do a master's. So we were able to find money, got her into one of the best programs, and she's done exceptionally well. And she's walked into a job at the World Bank.
Wow, so that's an emphatic yes.
Amazing.
Wow. So it's doable. A woman at the bottom of the pyramid can indeed play big, as it were. So the second question about mental health, do you want to take that up?
Okay. Mental health. I talked about hormones. I've spoken about life and its experiences and what it can deal you. Sometimes mental health comes from the home, your marital issues. It could be from colleagues in the office too. It could be from the boss that you have. It could be also genetic in nature. But what's critical is every workplace must have an employee relations department. And what they do there is there are people who counsel, there are people who relate. There must be sessions where you are relating with people individually, one-on-one. And in doing that, you must have a subtle way of helping them through. It might not even be mental health. It could be other areas. It could be other areas. It could be financial. It could be family related, but not affecting their mental health. But what needs to be done is you must know every staff, as large as any institution is. If it means having sub-regions for managing that, you must have it. You must relate with everybody. And lastly, there must be a health week, or sometimes some institutions have it twice a year. And what is done then is part of the team that will come, the medical team, there must be a psychologist. And what that psychologist will be doing is you will select those who have taken the option. It will be subtly done. You would have sent out some survey and also sent out a request for those who would like to have that. Once that first session is done, someone within the human resource department will continue making sure that you see whoever you need to see, and there must be confidentiality. Whoever is affected must be able to trust the system that whatever is happening to them is not being shared. And there must be someone who is following up within, apart from the psychologist. But definitely, part of the workplace is ensuring that you get the best out of people. And getting the best out of them is helping them.
This is part of my job that I don't quite like, having to put a stop to the conversation, but this has been really helpful. On a final note, I'd like you to complete this sentence for me, Lara, and I'll ask everyone. Okay. A woman will play big if?
A woman will play big if she's authentic. Dare to be the first-rate version of yourself. Know who you are. Be like, there's an analogy I always use, be like water. Water can be hot, it can be cold, it can be steam, it can be hurricane, it can be rain shower. Know when to be dynamic, but please still stay authentic.
A woman will play big
if she's visionary, deliberate in her actions towards achieving her goals, audacious in determining her goal, and demanding to have a seat at the table.
Beautiful. On a final note, a woman will play big if?
A woman will play big if she performs. If she ensures that in every task, be it little or big, that she's given or chooses to do, she does it well and she gets results.
Olaloye, co-founder and CEO, Iwosan Investments. Lara Lano, Managing Director, Maersk Nigeria. Kapilat Araoye, MD CEO, Lotus Bank. And earlier on, we had Owen Omogiapo, President and CEO of Transcorp. It's been an immense honor having you today. Thank you so much. So I'll put a hand together for them. And thank you so much as well for being a part of this. Don't worry, we're just getting started. So please get comfortable.
Thank